granniopteryx, granniopteryx. She knows the truth, she's linking every link.
Hello, I'm going to be talking about two medical practitioners. One of them is a neurosurgeon called Sam Eljamel, who, according to this report, spent around 20 years mutilating patients in NHS Tayside before doing a runner to Libya. Well, ElJamel is the name he was using in Britain. They can't find him now, so perhaps his name is somewhat different. The other doctor is Dr. Rahmeh Aladwan, wearing what I have previously described in other videos as a Muslim women's smirk. Although she's probably not quite so smirky now, having been suspended by a medical practitioners tribunal service panel on suspicion of being an all-round nasty person, not fit even to be telling patients to take 2 aspirin and call her in the morning. Right, having introduced them to you, I think that's enough information before I tell you that I'm Granniopteryx. Please like and share and click that notification bell. It's very helpful for keeping the subscription alive. And if you're not subscribed, why not try it for a while? It's just a click away. OK, let's get on with this sorry tale. We'll start with Dr. Rahmeh Aladwan. I've spoken about her before in another video. Rahmeh, which means in English mercy or compassion, is a doctor. If Rahmeh's parents gave her such a name in the hope that she'd grow up into a compassionate and lovely adult, they were sadly mistaken. But perhaps they simply hoped that she'd turn out to be an intelligent person. If that was the case, they'd have been disappointed in that too. AlAdwan seems to have been working in the Royal Free Hospital in Hampstead, which is an area where there are quite a lot of Jews. But this didn't stop her from posting this peach of a career booster. The Royal Free Hospital in London is a Jewish supremacy cesspit. Even if she didn't like Jews very much, this was probably not the cleverest thing to do. In fact, I reckon it was somewhat similar to relieving herself in her own bathtub. But to proceed, Dr. AlAdwan, or perhaps for the time being it should be Ms. Aladwan, was for various reasons, including the aforementioned Twix post, was called before a medical practitioners tribunal who banned her from practising as a doctor for 15 months while the General Medical Council did some investigating. Ms., or at the time Dr. AlAdwan, on another occasion called Israelis worse than Nazis, which really is inaccurate and was the beginning of my doubts about her ability to come to terms with the real world, which surely is a primary qualification for being a doctor. There is a secondary one as well, I'll get to that in a minute. Meanwhile, let's spare a moment to her Israelis are worse than Nazis comment. No, my dear, they aren't. The creatures who were worse than Nazis were Hamas. The Nazis at least felt guilty about what they were doing to the extent that they tried to hide it. Hamas made sure to video every last second of what they did and proudly proclaimed it. Right, I'm going to play you a little video here.
إسرائيل دولة لا مقام لها على أرضنا. إحنا الدولة لابد أن نزيلها لأنه بالفعل هي تعتبر كارثة أمنية وعسكرية وسياسية للأمة العربية والإسلامية، يجب أن تنتهي. لذلك احنا لا نخجل من نقول ذلك بكل قوة. انه صار لازم نأدبها، وحنأدبها مره ثانيه وثالثه، ومش هذا حتكون طوفان الاقصى اول مره، لا حتكون ثاني وثالثه ورابعه.
There's some information from Hamas official Ghazi Hamad. What really makes me worry about Dr. AlAdwan is her perception of reality. She called Hamas oppressed freedom fighters. Okay, let's have a little bit more audio visual, should we? Those were the oppressed freedom fighters dealing with dissidents to their governance. Those are their fellow Gazans they're kicking about, remember, these oppressed freedom fighters. How oppressed does Hamas appear to you? And also to Dr. AlAdwan? I mean, those pictures are freely available everywhere. And I personally have also seen videos of the punishments to which those oppressed freedom fighters would subject homosexuals, which they also proudly videoed. Of course, I can't play those. YouTube, you know. But I suppose the worst of her output that I've seen is this. Again, would you like a doctor treating you if she has no ability to come to terms with the real world? The number of proven rapes on October the 7th is 0. They were videoing it. And what has been proven, however, is the systemic sexual violence against Palestinian men, women and children, including rape and sodomy to the point of literal death committed by Israeli Jews. On that, I shall simply quote a Russian author called Vasily Grossman. Anti-Semitism is always a means rather than an end. Tell me what you accuse the Jews of. I'll tell you what you are guilty of. So when Dr. Rahmeh quotes this pile of horse manure, I remember what Vasily Grossman said about her oppressed freedom fighters. The problem isn't so much that she has a psychopathic hatred of Jews, which some people might think is not so good for Jews, but nothing that they have to worry about. No, the problem is that psychopaths rarely stop with just one focus of hatred or fear. It's called the shiny object cycle. Once a psychopath has dealt with one target, he or she will move on to the next shiny object. As for Dr. AlAdwan's fate, assuming the medical council say that she really is a psychopath who shouldn't be practicing medicine here, even if she does lose her licence to practice in this country, she'd probably be able to find a job somewhere in the Middle East, and a record of anti-Semitic psychopathy would probably be an actual plus over there. So I'm not bothered about her. But there is something else that bothers me, and that is the sneaking feeling that Dr. AlAdwan might not be alone. You see, I'm reading about more and more cases of various sorts of medics who happen to be Muslim and who have the same sort of mental disorder. And we are putting our lives in their hands. I shall now proceed to this very harrowing case of a neurologist called Sam Eljamel, who was allowed to maim and destroy lives through Scotland until he was finally put under scrutiny, whereupon he disappeared into the Middle East before the law could catch up with him. Mr. Eljamel, I'm assuming he does have the title Mr., being a surgeon. Between 1995 and 2014, that's almost 20 years, Mr. Eljamel was let loose to maim around 200 patients, botching one surgical procedure after another. To give you a specific example, one of his more shining moments was when he removed a woman's tear glands, leaving her with the brain tumour he was actually supposed to be operating on. I shall repeat that. She went in there for an operation for a brain tumour, and he removed her tear glands, which would effectively blind her. She's probably got to walk around for the rest of her life with, spray for her eyes because her eyes aren't producing tears. Can you imagine that? The discomfort, the constant being tied to the spray, the restriction of your life. And yet, as the complaints from the patients piled up, NHS Tayside completely ignored them, gaslit them and abandoned them, and allowed Eljamel to continue his rampage. Now, this is where I start to get really, really worried. I shall just refer you back to the boiling hatred that Ms. or Dr. AlAdwan had for some of her patients. And I want to ask, was Mr. Eljamel simply incompetent? Or did he actually know what he was doing? And for reasons known only to himself, was he deliberately disabling his Scottish patients? He was doing spinal surgery, and he has caused astonishing numbers of patients to be permanently crippled and permanently in pain. Was that deliberate? Now, this is really going to make you gasp. So I suggest you sit down for this. Was he really doing this deliberately? Well, we'll never know. Because some of you aren't going to believe this. NHS Tayside destroyed 40 logbooks relating to this fellow. It says here, NHS Tayside may have broken the law. What do you mean may have broken the law? The whole lot of them need shipping out to some deserted island and dumped there. They may have broken the law when it destroyed 40 logbooks potentially related to disgraced surgeon Sam Eljamel. Yep, NHS Tayside accidentally destroyed all his logbooks from 1995 to 2013. The destruction of the logbooks looks to me mighty convenient. And oops, now we don't know whom to blame for keeping him on, even as the accidents piled up. And they're not going to find out from Mr. Eljamel because he's disappeared. Believed to be practicing in Libya, but that's just a rumour. And as I said, he's probably changed his name. And the reason I'm talking about both Mr. Eljamel and Dr. AlAdwan in the same video is that there is one thing that binds them together. Well, apart from their religion, of course. It's the quiescence of the health authorities and their colleagues. Dr. AlAdwan must have made her feelings clear in general conversation with colleagues and nurses on many occasions during her work at the Royal Free. You can't tell me something didn't slip out. Somebody as obsessed and hate-filled as her couldn't have kept her vicious thoughts to herself all the time. I assume she wasn't reported or argued with because people didn't want to look racist or Islamophobic or something. So she carried on doing what she was doing, even though her Jewish patients would certainly have been in some danger. Now on to Mr. Eljamel. His many slips must have been noticed. They must have been. He removes tear ducts instead of a brain tumour. Somebody must have realised what was going on. But again, he appears to have been protected by his Middle Eastern origins, while the people he's injured live out their shortened lives in constant pain and disability. And NHS Tayside just tried to sweep the whole thing under the carpet. Well, I think I've covered everything up to now, but it reminds me, in both cases, but especially in this, of course, of a certain incident to do with kebab shop owners and white working class girls. There seems to be a sort of conspiracy of silence among all these organisations. So, well, meanwhile, Mr. Eljamel is disappeared still, and Dr. AlAdwan will see what the General Medical Council has to say after they've finished their 15-month investigation into the suitability of this person to take care of the lives of people who are ill and vulnerable. Would you like her having at you with a sharp knife when you're in that sort of condition? No, me neither. Till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.